Hey everyone, welcome to the Jobcast with Christian Amaral, where each week I sit down with the most interesting people I know and I talk to them about their life and career. My goal with each episode is that you walk away with some insight or inspiration for your own path in life. Real quick, I just want to give some context for the interview you're about to see. If you want to skip that and go straight to the interview, you can jump ahead to the timestamp below. Now, this episode's going to be a little bit different. Rather than sitting here in the studio and having a conversation, this episode was actually filmed on location. I traveled to my childhood park in Folsom, California. It's called the Folsom Lions Park. And I spoke with the owner, operator, and conductor of the miniature steam engine that runs around that park. It's called the Folsom Valley Railway. It's a train that I've been riding since like the day I was out of the hospital. And it's the same guy who's been operating this train 6 days a week, carrying adults and children alike for 30 years. Now, if you know me, you know that the only thing I like more than trains is nostalgia. As an adult, I love revisiting the things that were important to me as a child and diving in and documenting them and just getting as much information as I can. One night, I was up late, I was doing some research, and I was trying to learn more about this miniature steam engine that I had ridden every week as a child. I thought for sure there would be some sort of documentary or some sort of article that I could read that would tell me the history of the train, that would tell me more about this guy who's been operating it for 30 years. But I was surprised that I didn't find much. A couple news stories here or there, a few videos, but no one had sat down with Terry Gold, the guy who has owned and operated this train for 30 years, and asked him what his story was and documented the history of what I've now learned is a very historically significant steam engine. I wanted to make this video not only to document the history of this miniature steam engine, not only to talk to somebody like Terry who is living every single day following his passion, doing what he's excited about, but also, as you'll learn in this interview, because the future of this railroad is uncertain. So whether you're watching as a fan of the show or someone who's just interested in the history of the Folsom Valley Railway, thank you for listening to this intro, allowing me to set the context for this conversation. Thank you for watching the channel, and please enjoy my interview with the conductor of the Folsom Valley Railway, Terry Gold.
Last week I found a brand new video game on my tracks. Yeah, brand new one. In the box, untouched, just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere. Just the old Tendo system, you know, the very, very first generation.
Sure, somebody just decided they were done playing.
Yeah, well, they never used it. It was brand new. So I just get all the debris off the tracks. Sometimes a branch will fall onto it or something like that, and that can derail the train. So I'm just make sure there's nothing on the tracks. This is required by the state of California. They ask me to make sure the tracks are safe, and that's what I do. I find wild deer. I had deer last week. Haven't seen deer in 7 or 8 years. I haven't seen deer. 2000 and 2001, I was at the California State Fair. It cost me $35,000 to lay the track at the California State Fair. And they wanted me to be there for 3 years. I said, well, that's fine. So I put down $35,000, and everything I made in the first year I was there paid for the track. So I made zero. Oh, so the second year, they said, oh, we want you to reroute the train again. So we rerouted the train again. And after that year, they said, oh, we're done. And so basically the California State Fair was a total bust in my opinion. I could have stayed home and not do all this.
Made the same amount of money.
Yeah, I made the same amount of money, and I was working 14 hours a day at the California State Fair because 2 hours to fire up the train, run the physical train,
And they didn't pay you at all.
Not a dime. I was paying them for the pleasure of working there, for the exposure or whatever you want to call it.
And what does this train run on?
Kerosene.
Kerosene. And this is a conversion, right?
Yes, absolutely correct. And what happened was when I first bought this train back in 1990, it was a coal-fired engine. And this train has got a long, tremendous history. Train was built back in 1950 by Eric Thompson. He built the domes, the cab, the smokestack, the headlamp. The cars at the time were only enough to stick your tushy on it, and that was it. So when he built the little train, he thought he'd be carrying nothing but children, but he was pleasantly surprised that 75% of the riders were adults, not children. So he went from this scale to the next scale larger, and the cars went from 27 inches wide to 44 inches wide, so two adults could sit comfortably side by side. Wow. To my knowledge, this is the only one left in the United States that still operates of this size and in this scale. So this is a very famous little locomotive.
And when was this built?
1950. It ran in Tilton Park from 1950 to 1970. So it's a famous little engine. So anybody who runs miniature trains, they know about this engine because it's the one that started it all.
I see the name Cricket. Is there some?
Well, that's another interesting story. The wife of the guy who built it said, "Boy, that's cute as a bug," and she said, and Disney got involved because Walt Disney came up to him and asked him a whole bunch of questions about building a place called Disneyland. I don't know if you heard of it. He says, "Well, I want to do something at this," and he suggested, "Well, why don't you go to narrow gauge? You can get a bigger train on smaller tracks," and you know the rest of the story.
So is it possible that Walt Disney may have ridden this train?
I can almost guarantee he rode this train. Yes, he did. He rode this train and also the one in Los Gatos. He actually wanted to buy the train in Los Gatos, but then he realized that the trains at Los Gatos were too small. So he actually built those engines you see at Disneyland as we speak.
You must have a lot of love for this railroad.
Well, I've been doing it since I bought the railroad in June of 1990, and as they say, took possession of it January 1st, 1991. My relatives thought I was nuts, and I mean nuts. I thought my mother-in-law and father-in-law thought I was totally nuts.
How old were you at that time?
40 years old when I took possession of it. Well, it all started, I was working at a job. I was working 9-day, and I mean literally 9-day. I was working 14 hours a day for 2 years. We must stay back here. Watch your stuff. See, I have to fix this. 2 years just to put a down payment on an airplane that I wanted. Another long story. I have a friend of mine who got me involved in flying. His father helped design the L-1011, the Lockheed TriStar jet. And all of a sudden, one day, guy walks up to him, and while he's servicing the airplane he's flying for, he says, "Are you David DeLuel?" He says, "Yes, I am." He says, "We've heard good things about you." He says, "Do you have your jet rating?" I says, "No, sir, I don't." He says, "Well, Paul Anka wants to hire you to fly for him." He says, "If you get your jet rating, you got yourself a job." Wow. So now he's flying for Paul Anka. If you don't know who Paul Anka is, very famous singer from the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And one day, and I'll show you the picture, one day he took Johnny Carson. I don't know if you know who Johnny Carson is. Okay. He took Mr. Carson from Burbank Airport to Las Vegas because Mr. Carson owns a television station in Las Vegas. And so the flight was smooth as glass. The flight lasted 45 minutes. He lands the airplane and Mr. Carson shakes my friend's hand, and my friend opened his hands and there was $1,000 tip.
Wow.
We're talking a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
So you can imagine so every time he sees hello, Mr. Carson, all this kind of stuff. And he's flying, you name him, he's flown every major celebrity I can name off names. You go, no, yes. So that's how he got me involved in aviation. So I was following my friend's footsteps. Now I could not afford flying because it's extremely expensive. So I watched airplanes for years and years to be able to get enough flying time to get my private pilot's license. And one day I had an opportunity to buy a Bonanza, which is an F-35 Bonanza. It was the fastest airplane you can buy and the most fuel efficient airplane at the time. And I decided I wanted to get this airplane. So I told my wife, I says, "This is what I'm gonna do. And I worked I repeat, 2 solid years without a day off to pay for this airplane. We're talking Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve for 2 solid years just to put the down payment on that airplane. Because I said, I'm gonna work 40 hours. What I make from 40 hours goes toward the household, pays the bills, does whatever you want it to do, but anything over 40 hours is my money. So I would work 70 hours a week for 2 years just to put the down payment on this airplane.
Where did you meet your wife? It sounds like you had someone real supportive.
Well, okay. Well, again, I have my degree in photography. I taught photography. What I would do is I would go to a grocery store and I would photograph babies and parents and family pictures and all this type of stuff. And basically I met her at a grocery store and I made my announcement because as you know, I worked at Disneyland.
Yep.
And I did my Disneyland voice, and she came up to me, says, "Where have I heard that voice before?" I says, "Well, I had to go to," now she's from Florida, but what happened is I was doing some voiceovers, and at the time they were using tape, videotape or audio tape.
Yeah.
And I did the spiel, and they sent it off to Florida for a special occasion, and they lost the tape. So they had to fly me out there and do it live. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Walt Disney World. Today we're gonna have a blah, blah, blah." You know, I just said the spiel, what I was supposed to say.
Wow.
And she heard that voice. Says, "Where have I heard this voice?" I says, "Well, oh my God, I know you. I was there." So that's how we met. And again, I was taking pictures. I'm a professional photographer. And she's my wife is a gorgeous girl. So I said, "Can I please take your pictures?" And she's, "Sure." And then that's long nor short story. 6 months later, guess what? We got married on Mickey Mouse's 50th birthday. When I was working there, I was doing everything live. So for instance, on the train, "Please remain seated while the train is in motion." All that stuff was done live. So most of the voiceovers, not voiceovers, but announcements, I do live. It was a fantastic place to work for. The only drawback, in my opinion, and the only drawback, it's extremely difficult to get on full time because nobody wants to quit. The pay scale at the time I was working there was fantastic. Fantastic pay scale. But again, who wants to quit a job that everybody's smiling, having a good time? It's a laid-back type of job, and you're making good money. So that's why I wanted to do. And I tried and I just could not get on full time because nobody wants to quit. So what happened was I subscribe to they call the Live Steam magazine, and I say, "A train for sale." And the first train was, guess what? In Carson City, Nevada, at this local park there. And he wanted $115,000 for the railroad. I says, "I can do that." So the guy actually came all the way from Carson City, Nevada, and says, "You don't want to buy this train." I says, "Why is that?" "Well, you have other plans for it, and you just won't make any money at this railroad because we only operate the train only 2 days a week, and you can't survive on 2 days a week." And he was right. I couldn't survive. And about a couple months later, the Folsom Valley Railway came up for sale. I said, "Yep." So I came up here and checked out the railroad. See, now here's what I got to replace. See how it's cracked? Oh, I'm gonna have to replace it. So I consider a dead tie when the wood starts disintegrating. So I'm gonna replace that one. So anyway, came up here and checked out the railroad, and I said, I can handle this. And I bought the railroad, and then January 1st, my parents, as I said before, they thought I was nuts, but I did lots of research because I talked to the Redwood Valley Railway, and I went to the guy's local park at Los Angeles, where the Griffith Park is, and asked him, "How much do you guys make?" And I go, "Oh my God, these guys are making a killing here." So I said, "Boy, this might be, and I talked to the owner of this railroad, and he was doing okay. He wasn't making, fantastic money, but he was making, I consider, somewhat decent money. So I bought the railroad. I told my parents, this is what we're going to do. And oh my God, are you crazy? Are you? This is the funny part about it. Remember I was telling you I was working 70 hours a week?
Oh yeah.
Well, I worked this railroad for 3 days. I made more money in 3 days than I made in an entire month at my old job.
Wow.
And they didn't talk to me ever since. They didn't make, no, you're crazy. Oh my God, you're doing great. So it worked out fine. The only drawback to this business, the only problem I had, to be honest with you, I know how to operate trains, but maintaining is a whole different animal. Oh, they never mentioned the chemicals, and they never mentioned that. That was a big problem. So basically, you learn as you go type of thing. So that was the only drawback, because the owner just said, here's the keys, knock your socks off. And
So no training period.
no training whatsoever. You could talk to people who run trains. A good example, like today is my last day of operating the train until next Thursday. So I talked to people in Colorado, I talked to people in Nevada, which is the railroad museum there. I talked to the guys at Sonoma Train Town, I talked to the guys at Redwood Valley, I talked to everybody, and they all have all totally different ways of doing it. Oh, what we want you to do is fill the boiler all the way to the top and add chemicals. Hello. Hi. How you doing? Good. Oh no, we want you to dry it out. You just, once you're done at the end of the week, dry it out and sit for a half hour and wait until it's all dried out. Then I talked to another guy. Oh no, we want you to sit for a half hour, wait until the pressure goes down 30%, and then after that, I want you to put an air hose down there and blow all that extra steam, because it's like a sauna inside, and it'll be just fine. So I talked to him and go, oh my God, what am I gonna do? So now I'm waiting a half hour, and then I blow all the steam out of it, and then I put an air hose on it, and it's just like a sauna, it takes all the steam out of it and all the moisture out of it, and my train's good to go. So that's what I'm doing now. I spent so much money on that engine. I've replaced the boiler on that. Just the boiler alone on that little itty bitty engine was $35,000 for just the boiler. That's not tearing it down, not putting it back together, just the boiler. So that's why the steam engines are extremely expensive to operate. People have no idea. And that's why in the United States today, from my understanding, there's 3 or 4 of us, 5 of us, that still operate steam engines, because they're so damn expensive. And if I do what I'm supposed to do with this engine, it should last 100 years if I'm doing it the correct way, which I'm hoping and praying I'm doing it the right way.
Had you known it was this expensive and this much work,
Well,
do you think you still would have bought the railroad?
I would, yes. But I just wish that the previous owner would say, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. He never said boo to me, figuring that I knew all this information, and I did not know this information. But overall, I love what I do. I've been doing it for over 30 years now, and I just really like what I do. 5 minutes, I have to oil the engine, okay? So if you want to sit down right there, ma'am, I'll be right there, okay? Pie, chocolate mousse pie, and for the kids, we have banana splits. First feature film starts at 6 o'clock, okay? And here's your change, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
There you go, just hop aboard.
Okay.
You ready to go, big guy?
Yeah.
He is ready to go, all right. Are you guys ready to go, or are you waiting for somebody?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're with them and we're with them.
Okay, be that way, all right, all right. About 24 hours, 25 hours. Takes a while to get to Denver. Not Denver, but this one's going to Seattle. I can take your picture for if you like also. Yeah, I have 3 jobs besides this. So I worked last night at the venue in Thunder Valley Casino, and I saw last night the Steve Miller Band.
Oh yeah.
So I enjoy what I do, but I didn't get to bed until midnight last night. So as I say, I'm running on empty. I'm very tired.
How many hours do you think you worked between all?
Oh, between 50 and 60 hours. I work at a movie theater in El Dorado Hills, which is the Regal Theater. I've been there for 18 years. And I work 2 days a week there at the movie theater, sometimes 3 days a week. It just fluctuates. In all honesty, I'm guessing I work I would say 40 hours a week, I'm guessing, because I have to replace the ties, I have to do the service. So there's a lot of things I have to do. Now I'm gonna blow down some steam, and it's gonna make a lot of racket, so guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put my earplugs back in, because I wanna protect my ears. That's one thing you gotta do, is you gotta protect your ears. Now the purpose, what I just did, there's a lot of sediment, rust particles, whatever it may be, and you want to get rid of all that crud out of the engine. So now I'm going to relight the fire. Now they're going to see smoke come out of it. So basically I'm closing this valve, opening this valve wide open to get all the moisture out of the section. I'm just clearing all the wet water out of it. And now I'm going to close it back down. That's what you want to see, nice dry. Take a piece of paper. It's all warmed up. I'm going to light the paper, throw it in the box, and oh. And when you hear that go, that means the fire went out. So I have to relight it again. The biggest engine I've ever operated was at Walt Disney World. The Walter E. Disney #1. Which is why it looks just like my engine. The only difference between my engine and the Walt Disney engine, and that's engine #2, which is the Roy Disney #2. The only difference is it's a 460, which they call 10-wheelers. And the Walter E. Disney looks just like this, a 460. It's called what they call a balloon stack, where this portion like this goes all the way down to the base. So it goes like this versus this. So it's called we call a balloon stack. This is what they call a small diamond stack. Now I'm getting all the moisture out of the cylinders. See all the water coming out of the cylinders? I do this because I don't want to get my engine dirty from all the oils and things like that on the engine. I get spend hours cleaning the engine, and within 5 or 6 seconds, it's all over the engine. So I do this to get rid of all the moisture. So you can imagine, after 25 years, I finally figured it out, how to run trains. That's how much, it's just an ongoing process, learning how to do things on trains. Ongoing process. I have a gentleman who wants to buy my black engine, and the city wants to buy this railroad. I've been offered a job at Walt Disney World running engine #1.
Really?
Really.
What's stopping you from taking it?
I haven't sold the railroad yet.
Do you think you will? When you sell it, you're gonna head out to Florida?
Yeah. The reason why I've been doing this for over 30 years, as I mentioned before, and I mean, I love what I do, but I want to do other things that I can't do. Like I want to do more traveling. I can't because I have to be here. I want to visit relatives. Can't do it because I have to be here. I missed a lot of special moments in my life. For instance, when my father passed away, I couldn't go to his funeral because I had to be here. So there's a lot of things I want to do, I can't do because I have to be here. So if I want to leave the middle of June, can't do it because I have to be here. So there's a lot of positive things, but there's a lot of negative things because my wife wants to take her cruise. She's going to take her cruise, but I have to be here. So,
Have you ever employed anyone to help you out? Or?
No. When I first bought this railroad, the owner of this railroad before me says, "Oh, Eric, he knows everything about trains. You're afraid to, he knows it all. He's a good guy. He knows what he's doing. So one day I had the state of California had to inspect the boiler. So I had basically all these plugs out so he can look in the boiler and say, yep, that looks really good. So he came to my house and I gave him 2 brand new plugs. Here's the plugs. I just had it inspected. So what does he do? Now this is when it was coal fired. So basically he put the plugs in and start firing a steam locomotive with coal. And this is a steam engine. Guess what? No water. He forgets to put water in it. So what does he do? He turns on the injectors and throws water in this thing, and engine, and that little incident cost me $15,000 because I had the engine all retubed. I couldn't run for 3 months because half of it's here and half of it's there. So it cost me $15,000 plus the maintenance on the engine. So I said, no, okay. So a couple years later, I had another guy. Can I learn how to run the train? Oh, sure. I taught him how to run the engine, myself taught him how to run the engine. This is what you do. And one day, this little nut, I repeat again, this little nut right here came off. So I decided, you know what? Let me go to the local hardware store to get a brand new nut for that part, right? I go to the hardware store, which is only a block away. I came back and water was everywhere. It says the check valve stuck open. This valve stuck open. He didn't know what to do. Again, coal-fired engine. Guess what? Another $15,000. And I had to, I was shut down for 3 or 4 months. The whole thing again, shut down. And so I said, you know what? Never again. If I'm not here, train don't run. Because I cannot afford to spend $15,000 on somebody else's mistake. So that's why if I'm not here, train don't run. Because everybody says, well, why don't you go ahead and go to New York or where you got to go? Have somebody run it in your position. I said, nah, I don't think so. Because I've had this experience before. So that's why if I'm not here, train don't run. So this January, I went to Walt Disney World, went to the train station. Guess, you are a steam engineer? You're kidding me. We need you. I said, well, I said, whenever you get, whenever you can, come out here and you got yourself a job. I says, okay. So in January, I put the train up for sale, and an ex-Disney guy that I knew wanted to buy the railroad. And he just didn't have the funds to buy the railroad, so he kind of fell through. Then I had a guy from Utah who was buying my black engine, wants to buy the train and the tracks, everything, and move everything to Utah on to his estate, and he wants to do a commercial operation also. And he's offering me, $375,000 for that. I said, well, okay, so just do me a favor. Let me call the city of Folsom and let them know that this is coming down the pike, that I'm going to be selling the railroad. And he says, well, I want to give the city a crack at it first because, I think the train should stay here. So I told the city the situation, and now basically, hopefully by the middle of October, not October, excuse me. I say the middle of November, I'll have a yay or nay. If the city says, no, we cannot afford it, or whatever it may be, then the train's going to go to Utah. Wow. The whole shoot match. He's coming out to learn how to run the Cricket. He'll be out here in about a week or 2 weeks from now, and all the track, everything's going to go. The only thing that's going to stay is the barn and maybe the train station, but the city will not be able to run anything on this. They just can't run anything because of the ADA, as you know. They call grandfathered in because this was operating before the ADA got involved. So I'm grandfathered in. If they put a new railroad in, they can't run it here because of the radiuses. So they can't run any trains on this track. Once this track's gone, that's it for trains at the zoo. Most of the people who want to buy the railroad, they want to take all this stuff and leave. Most of the people were We're talking very extremely wealthy people who just want the trains. They don't care about running the zoo here. They have no desire. I've had several people that don't want to buy, they don't want to run it here. They just want the trains. I know a person or persons that are, not Michael Eisner, Michael, what was his name? The head of Pixar. But he bought full-size trains on his property. He got like 900 acres of land, built an entire railroad for Michael, whatever his name is, and he rebuilt the trains, the cars, everything to be able to run on his private property. And that's the president of Pixar. I can't remember his last name. But anyway, that's the kind of people that we deal with. We're talking multi-millionaire people that they want to do this on their property. Lots of millionaires. That's just what they want to do. It's a glorified train set for them where they can play with it. At the end of the day, they put the train away and they call it a day. I had a lot of celebrities that you probably don't know, but would play with trains. Here's one example. Close friend of mine. His name was David Rose. Who's David Rose? Well, did you see a series called Little House on the Prairie?
Oh yeah.
He wrote the theme song. He also did the stripper, da-dun, dun, dun, da-da. He wrote that. Composer. He also is the first husband of a lady called, I don't know if you heard of her, Judy Garland? That was her first, her first husband.
Wow.
So we're talking, and then I knew another guy, his name was Clarence Talbot. Fantastic guy. He let me use his engine. He taught me a lot of stuff about trains. He was a cameraman on a movie called Gone with the Wind. I'm talking just these people, you go, oh, what the heck? These people are
It's a lot of exclusive club.
Yeah, it is. Extremely exclusive club. So you can imagine, oh yeah, these people got, these engines are not cheap. Like David Rose, he had a full, again, these are trains that you know nothing about, but called a Northern. To buy a Northern, we're talking a long, long time ago. You're talking $100,000 for a little engine it's this long. And we're talking today's dollars, you're talking about $1 million engine. Today's dollars. And we're talking, these people, you just go, what? Like Walt Disney, he had, as you probably know, he had the 173 in his backyard. He had miles of track. That's just the way it is. That's how rich people do.
Wow.
So that's why all these people are calling me. Oh, we want to buy the train. Do you want to? No, I don't want to buy. I don't want to run the train. I just want to buy the train. I go, oh, okay. So I have a lot of people who want to buy just the train. They don't care about running a commercial operation whatsoever.
Do you have any feelings one way or the other about whether it goes to a private
Well,
sector versus somebody that operates?
yes and no. Yes and no. I've been doing this for such a long time. All I want to do is get what I paid for it. What I put all it, because I've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into this railroad for upkeep and all this kind of stuff. I at least want to get my money back so I can do what I want to do. And I've been doing this for over 30 plus years. And I just, again, as I said before, I want to be able to enjoy, doing things that I want to do. And I want to be, if I had a job where I just run the train and walk away and say, like I used to do, that would be great. So, do I have I don't know. It's a very good question. I don't know. I would hope to, my goal was to sell this to somebody who would run the train here, and I would then spend 6 months teaching that person all the things that I learned so he won't have the same problems that I had when I bought this railroad. That's what I would really like to be able to do. I have to go down there. If you want to get on the train, you can. Well, this is actually a functioning water tower. I spent a lot of money on this water tower. I think $5,000 or $6,000 on this tank, the whole system. And again, guess what? I can't use it anymore.
Why is that?
Well, and I'll tell you, because when you put the water inside your tender, it creates a lot of bubbles. And they say bubbles is the worst thing you can do with a steam engine, because the bubbles will create those pits I was telling you about. So now I have to put the hose below the water line just to fill it up with water. So all these little tricks that I learned, that guys at the Nevada Railroad Museum, if you watch them, they don't put water directly into the tender anymore. They actually pump it into the bottom. It doesn't create any bubbles. So all these little tidbits of information I'd gotten over the years of the do's and don'ts about running trains. So all these little things I learned over the years, the do's and the don'ts about running steam engines. So it's an ongoing process. And you can imagine I got more hours behind a steam engine than probably anyone else in the United States, because I'm the only one that operates this train. Hi guys. Hello, and how many?
Hello, 1, 2, 4.
Okay, if you want me to take your picture for you, I can. I used to teach photography,
Oh,
so I can take a
nice.
beautiful picture for you.
That.
Yeah, I taught for 9 years photography.
Wow.
Keep the live turned off, keep your flash turned on, touch this down arrow, touch the 3 rings, go to vivid warm, touch the up arrow like this. Yeah, well, I taught for 9 years photography. Notice I'm over here, sun's over there. So why don't everybody look back towards me this way? Mommy, if you can slide over that way just a little bit. Okay, here we go. Wait for this car to get out of the way, and here we go, and boom. And here's your change, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
There you go, just hop aboard. You go ahead and take your picture, and then I'll take a picture. I want you to see the difference. Go ahead, knock your socks off. These are one of the best camera phones in the world. Watch. Keep your lens nice and clean. Okay. Keep the live turned off, keep your flash turned on. Touch those 3 dots. Move it to vivid warm. Touch the 3 dots. Okay. Watch this.
All right.
Ready, guys? And don't move on me. There you go. And boom. Now, take a look at the difference.
Whose picture is better?
Let's see. All these cars are custom built, and the same guy who built the train or restored this engine also restores the engines for Disney. He would build these cars for me. As you mentioned before, there's not very many people who can actually build these cars from the ground up.
How would you say your career at this point compares to what you imagined for yourself in your 20s?
Well, you asked such an excellent question.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent question. Well, originally I was hoping to be a professional photographer. That was my ultimate goal. I went to school, I did everything I possibly can do.
And where did you go to school?
Went to Brooks Institute of Fine Arts in Santa Barbara, which is now closed. You name it, I did it all. Lighting, schooling, I mean, everything with cameras, lenses. Do we use this? I mean, but everybody's now using iPhones, Galaxies, and people. Now, for instance, when I do a wedding, I was the only guy in because I had a $5,000 camera taking fantastic pictures, and people who had their Instamatics and their pictures would turn out, you know what, terrible. So no, we'll go with a professional. But now everybody's got digital cameras, camera phones, and so the use of a professional photographer is pretty much dead and gone. So yeah, I saw the writing on the wall. So I said, nah, this is not for me. I worked in a professional studio, would photograph people, and I just did that for many, many years, and I struggled, just plain struggled. And I told my wife, I mean, I'm working my buns off and we're not getting nowhere. And we just got married, and my wife said, surprise, I'm pregnant. I go, oh. So had to do something to make ends meet. So I got another job and all kinds of things. As I said before, I'm a guy who does lots and lots and lots of research. And I talked to the guys at the Sonoma Train Town. I talked to the guys at Redwood Valley. I talked to the guys at Los Gatos. I talked to the guys in Los Angeles. I mean, I talked to all these people who actually run commercial operations and ask them, how many people do you carry? How much do you charge? Blah, 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 blah. So I knew exactly what, how much they make. And they were, you know, they told me exactly what's going on. Like the Redwood Valley Railway, they carry 300,000 people per year. 300,000. She charges $3 a ride. Do the math. She's making a killing. Sonoma Train Town, they do 150,000 people. They charge $9 a ride. Do the math. So man, what can I say? So I said, I'll buy this railroad. And the guy showed me his paperwork, and he was making diddly squat. He was making about $30,000 a year, but he only operated the train 2 days a week, Saturdays and Sundays. That was it.
Yeah, and 50 cents a ride.
And 50 cents, thank you very much, 50 cents a ride, and he did it as a hobby. But when I bought the railroad again, I knew how to operate trains until the cows come home. I knew everything, what to do, how this, but to maintain it and make sure you use the right this, the right, they never told me boo. Just put the water in the tender and take off. And they said, okay, do oil this, and okay. But they never told me about the chemicals. They never told me about blowdowns and all that. Never, just wave to the kid. That's all I did.
Did you ever try to work at Knott's Berry Farm?
I tried and I said, thank you, but no thank you.
Really?
And the reason why, because at Disneyland, I was making $22.50 an hour, blowing the whistle. Now we're talking a long time, but blowing the whistle and waving
That's
to
a
the
great
kid.
pay.
It gets better. If I worked on my 9th hour, it was $33 an hour. If I worked on my 6th day without a day off, it was $44 an hour. And if I worked on my 6th day without a day off, it was $66 an hour until I get 2 consecutive days off. And all I'm doing is smiling and waving and blowing the whistle. That's all I had to do. And then again, my department was closed because of budget cuts, so I tried to get on full time. And I said, oh no, I'm sorry, we are fully staffed. So I went to Knott's Berry Farm. They were offering minimum wage, and if you're there for 9 years, you get $1 an hour raise after 9 years. I said, no, it's okay. The only advantage working for Knott's Berry Farm is they run full size. I mean, as they say, the real deal.
Sure.
So that was the only advantage of working Knott's Berry Farm, because they ran C16s, C19s, and they're full scale. They have one outside and then one inside. What they do is the one outside, they're completely restoring the one that's inside from the ground up. They do bearings, axles, the whole shoot match. And when that one's restored, guess what?
Rotate it.
There you go. And they go back, and that one, then they go through that engine completely through. I knew Ward Kimball, very nice man, but he's the one who got Walt Disney turned on to trains.
Wow.
Because Walt Disney worked on trains back when he was a kid. They call him a paper butch boy. And what he did, he would sell newspapers while the train was going down the tracks. He would sell newspapers. So anyway, he got the love affair with trains, and the first attraction worked at Disneyland was the trains. Yes. So that's where Walt Disney got enthralled with trains. And he owned the trains. Literally, he owned the trains. He owned engine 1 and engine 2. Every time the train would leave the station, he would make money for the family, not the corporation, but he physically owned the trains and the riverboat. So when you get on the riverboat and you give your ticket, all that money would go to Mickey Mouse, not Mickey Mouse, but it would go to Walt Disney, his family. So when he passed away, the family owned the trains at Disneyland and the riverboat. The Walt Disney family actually owned those. That's how they were able to take care of the family and all the expenses they had, because they owned the trains. Because he saw, in case something happened to him, his family would be taken care of. And then eventually the Disney family actually sold the trains to the Disney Corporation. 15, 20 years ago. I'm not too sure what that date, but Mrs. Disney's passed away, and things happen. So they decided to sell the trains to the corporation. So this last January, my wife and I took a trip to Disney World, and I basically went up to the train station and I said who I was. And said, we want you to start right now. I said, well, I can't. I basically told my story. He says, whenever you get over here, you're in like Flint. I said, no problem. So as soon as I sell this railroad and sell my house, off I go. And I've also talked to another person who actually inspected my train on Monday. That's why I'm kind of dragging today. He said Dollywood is also another place to look at. So I might move to, it's going to be those two parks. I'm the side, because I'm concerned, big concern, weather. I'm very concerned about weather. The houses in Florida, if you have a new house, they're made of cement. They don't use wood. It's all cement. And the eaves on their house are this big. They're not like my house, they're like this big. The houses there are this big. And they're completely sealed, so your roof doesn't fly off. So that's what I'm hoping to do. If the money's not there or the opportunity's not there, then I'll just go up to Disney World, not Disney World, up to Tennessee and go to Dollywood and call it a day.
Have your kids ever expressed an interest in carrying on your legacy
No.
with the train? No.
No.
They went their own path.
Basically, they cannot afford this operation, and because again, this is my retirement fund, if you want to call it. I don't like the word retirement. I hate the word with a passion. So that's why I'm never going to quit, because I can tell you stories about people I've talked to, and to me, it scares the living daylights out of me, because I had a person retire, within 3 months he was dead. I've had people like my aunt. She was extremely busy, very active person. She was driving school buses, she was taking kids every place, and she decided to retire. Now she's like this. Now I have relatives in the farm, and they have a lot, I repeat, a lot of real estate. I'm talking serious real estate. You're standing up. They own 55,000 acres of land. And I have over 300 relatives that live on the farms, because my one uncle owns 20,000 acres, just one uncle. And they tell me the same thing: stay active, stay active. I have an aunt who just passed away. She was 103 years old when she passed away. All my aunts and uncles and cousins up there, my aunts and uncles, I should say, in their 80s and 90s, and they're still active, and they keep on moving until they can't move anymore.
Incredible. And you attribute that to the fact that they just don't
Absolutely.
stop.
I can tell you more stories. I've talked to several people, and they all say the same thing: stay active, stay active, stay active, as long as you possibly can.
It seems like you have lived your entire life really just following what you're excited to do.
Exactly.
Is that intentional, or
Yes.
really?
Yes.
Where does that come from?
Probably my parents.
Yes.
And my parents, give an example, I'm the oldest of 5, and now I'm the oldest of 11. It's a long story. But basically what happened was, my parents, we went to Colorado twice. That's it. So my parents never traveled, not at all. They just sat home and watched color TV and didn't travel at all. And I said, you're working your buns off and you're sitting home watching color TV. To me, this is not living. You're not enjoying your life. You're not enjoying the cultures and all that type of stuff. It just doesn't make sense to me. And my sister, what should she do? She became an au pair, and she's ahead in Norway for a very hoity-toity, and she was traveling anywhere this family. She would take a little Johnny, so she went to Italy, and just bing, 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 all these different countries, and it cost her nothing.
Following a non-traditional career path like that, did you ever feel like listening to the voices around you saying you're crazy for
No, I never
following
listened to
your
them.
passion?
And the reason why, and I'll be real honest with you, because I keep on saying the same thing: research, 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 research.
Yeah.
Because I had plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. I had the job all lined up. I was ready to rock and roll. They checked me out. I was good to go. And as I think I mentioned before, I bought this railroad. I put the down payment. I was paying the guy who owned the railroad. And I took possession on January 1st. The first weekend, I still live in Thousand Oaks because I had to commute up here because our house didn't go through. It's a long story. But I came up here and I worked a 3-day weekend, which is the Martin Luther King holiday weekend. I made more money in 3 days than I worked doing the entire month doing my old job, working 30 to 40, 50 hours a week. I was making all that money in 3 days. So I said, no, I don't need to do this. I don't need to drive a school bus. So I decided to do that. Also, the first year I had the railroad, I ran the train only on Saturdays and Sundays, and I was making enough money. So, no, I don't need a second job because I'm making a lot of money doing this. So the following year, this year number 2, I come out here, I was working on the train, and I noticed the park is full of cars. I said, what the heck? Let me try run the train Tuesday through Friday. And my pay scale or pay rate or income just went like this. I said, that's what I'm going to do. So I've been running the train 6 days a week ever since, until just a couple of years ago, after the pandemic, the city decided they only wanted the zoo, or have the zoo open on Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays versus Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays. So now I'm only working 4 days a week where I used to work 6 days a week.
Got it.
My parents my father did the exact same thing for 30 some odd years, never changed his profession, and that's all he did. My mom was basically trying to keep up with us 5 kids. So she was a home mom, and she once in a while she worked here and worked there, but that's basically all they did. And they just worked and stayed home, worked and stayed home, and didn't do anything. So because of my situation, I was doing something they never even thought of outside the box. So I did lots and lots of research because I didn't want to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and finding out this thing is not worth doing it. You know, imagine selling your house, literally selling your house, take the equity from the house to buy this railroad, and that's what I did. They thought I was totally nuts by doing that. So that's why, you know, I do lots of research, because you're sticking your neck out for 50 or 60 or 100,000 or $200,000. You better damn know what you're doing when you do that. In all honesty, I always tell people the same thing, and I tell my relatives or whatever who have small children. In true honesty, the most important thing to me is education. Without education, you've got nothing. Because I say, here's my keys to my airplane. If I didn't have good education, I would never be able to afford this plane. But with these keys, here's my house. Without good education, I would never have this house. I have a Porsche. This is my car. This is what I did because I have a good education.
Absolutely.
Education is, to me, is the most important thing of all. If you have no education, you're not going to go anywhere.
You sound like somebody who's always learning. Your education didn't stop in college.
Correct. Seek education. I can't emphasize to anybody who have small children, education, education, education.
And what advice do you have for people who want to follow their passion in life, but they're
Research,
worried about
research, research, research. No matter what you want to do, you've got to know what you're doing before you step into that arena. You've got to know. If you don't know what you're doing, get out of it. Because, for instance, if I bought this railroad and I had no idea how much money it makes and all this type of stuff, I would have never bought the railroad. I track. I'm a tracker. What's a tracker? Basically, you can ask me, what was the weather on June the 1st, 1995? I can tell you exactly what the low was, what the high was, how much money I made that day, how much my wife made that day. At Disneyland, they do the same thing. They track. So, for instance, at the Coca-Cola Terrace at 3 o'clock on June 19th, whatever day, whatever year, I can tell you to the dime how much money the Coca-Cola Terrace made at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on June the 3rd, 1994. They can tell you exactly how much they made. I can carry, when my train's fully assembled, I can carry 100 people in 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Right. And it took me all day to carry 100 people. To me, it's not worth it. Yeah. So I say, okay, I'm done. But today you can see the trains were mostly full, so I decided to stay the entire day. And you see I was busy right up to the end.
You were.
So see, I'll track that. But I went back to my previous times. Sometimes one year I was busy on Saturday and Sunday. I was smoking. And couple of years I did yesterday, squat. So it just fluctuates. And also weather, major contributor. If the weather is extremely hot, I do terrible. If it rains, I do literally nothing. Right. Because it rains, I can't run the train. It's too dangerous to run the train.
Makes sense. So
it's just like I say, research, tracking. If in this particular business, you've got to track. Disney tracks, Magic Mountain tracks, any of the theme parks, they track because they need for instance, on a really busy day, on October 31st, it's going to be busy. It's Halloween night. We're expecting, 400,000 people or 1 million, whatever. They know exactly how many people are going to eat in the restaurants. They know how much food they're going to have. They know everything they need to know. They've got it. They've got it down to science. For people who want to run a commercial operation or train operation, no matter where it is in the United States or anywhere in the world, you have to do your research before, because this is a major investment to build something of this magnitude. Because I get people all the time, oh, I want to do this where I live. How, and I tell them, you've got to do how many people even live here? Oh, we have about 20,000 people in my area. Then don't do it. Yeah. You just can't do it. Most people who have miniature railroads, you might be surprised, in their backyards. A lot of them, because they know they cannot make a living doing this. They just can't. because these things are extremely expensive. Unless you got lots and lots of money, then don't do it.
There you go, guys.
Well, there it is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope you learned something about this little steam engine that for some reason means so much to me. I want to say thank you to Terry for letting me interrupt his day and ask him all these questions and film his interaction with customers. This conversation meant the world to me. I want to say thank you to the city of Folsom for allowing an attraction like this to operate continuously since the 1970s. This train means so much to me. It's meant so much to so many kids who grew up in this area. I don't know what the future of this railroad is going to be. There's a chance that it could be sold to a buyer out of state. There's a chance that the city of Folsom could gather the funds necessary to purchase the railroad and keep it here. But whatever happens, my hope is that the train remains open to the public so that generations of families to come can continue enjoying the magic that is riding the Cricket train. All right, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.